Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in whatever part of the world or multiverse you are. This is Sally Ember EDD on episode 45 of Changes, Conversations Between Authors on YouTube and Google+, Hangouts on Air. And I am delighted this morning to have a new author with me all the way from Minnesota. And this is Cara Weston, also known as A.C. Weston. Welcome, Cara.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here.
And Cara, in addition to being an author of sci-fi and fantasy, is also an artist. And she has posted very generously, sharing many of her drawings and other kinds of art on our Google+ event page. So if that is not where you are watching this, or you are not watching this live, you should be. But if you're not, then please go look at the Google+ event page, which is listed on YouTube and on lots of other promotions that you may have seen, so that you can admire her art. And please leave her some comments. Artists need comments, don't you?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
You know, like, I really like the way you did those fingers, or how did you get the angle on that one arm? You know, like, they really want to understand. That's what we want. We want interaction with our viewers, our readers, our appreciators. It's nice to be a lurker. We don't mind lurkers. That's okay too. But if you participate, we give you extra points, and we will put your comment or your question up on the screen, and you will have your 20 seconds or more of fame.
Yes.
So we encourage that, and we really are grateful for your participation now while we're live, or anytime later. If you want to have a response from one of us, make sure you ping us by putting in our Google+ identity with a plus sign in front of it. Mine is Sally Sue Ember, S-U-E. And Cara Weston is C-A-R-A Weston, W-E-S-T-O-N. And then we will know you talk to us, and we will respond. So today we're going to talk about science fiction and writing and fantasy and crowdfunding and all kinds of other things related to those topics. And I wanted to start out by just letting you tell us, Cara, about your series and what the name of it means and what your main character is up to and how you picked her name and all that good stuff.
Oh, sure. I'm revealing my Minnesota nature. Oh, sure.
That's good. We like Minnesota.
Yeah. I'm not actually from here. I'm from Colorado. But I've been here for over 10 years, and I picked up the accent a little bit. They make fun of me in Colorado. But okay, so She Is the End is the first book in a trilogy that I'm calling the Vada Chronicles. And Vada is the name of the coalition of 4 planets in our galaxy that exists outside of the knowledge of Earth, but around Earth. And in this setting, it's set in present day. And in this universe, Earth is considered sort of like a savage, kind of ignorant, it's called a protectorate. And so as a coalition, they have decided to keep Earth sort of pristine, and they call it sleeping. Earth is sleeping, because they don't know about the presence of other people in the galaxy. But there are people, human aliens, coming and going from Earth all the time. And they have secret military bases on Earth as well.
Ooh, are they underground or in the water, or how are they secret?
Well, one is underground. And one, it took over a ancient Tuscan town that was abandoned. They just took it over. And so that's where the story starts, actually, is this in Tuscany.
And that's Italy, for those of you who are geographically impaired the way I am. Now, I have a question about VADA, V-A-D-A. Yes. Is that an acronym or a foreign language word? Like, where does that come from?
You know, okay, so this whole thing started when I was a teenager with a couple of my friends in high school. We were just talking about storytelling, and we just like writing and art. And so we decided to make up a bunch of stories, and we were each going to write our own little stories in the universe. But we were just shooting out ideas, and together we just brainstormed the names of these planets. And it was a little bit more, the way you might think of maybe YA stuff being simplified, where each of the planets stood for different things. And I've gotten away from that a little bit because I wanted to mature it a little bit. So it's not like Gastrid is the fire planet, and and Ayla is the water planet anymore, which is how it started. But Vada, we just made it up. It doesn't mean anything. And it was just we wanted to make it sound like it might be on the cover of like a 1930s serial science fiction, you know.
Oh. So now I have to raise about 10 red flags with everything you just said. Because if you go the way of Veronica Roth or Suzanne, whatever her name is, that wrote the Hunger Games, Veronica Roth wrote the Divergent series. Yeah, okay. If you are that lucky, then your friends.
There's nothing wrong with it.
No, then your friends are going to want a piece of your pie, honey cake.
Yeah, they probably will.
Yeah, and they might deserve it. They might deserve it. So just to let you know, now that you made a public statement, you know, that they are collaborators in some portion of your creativity. But
I wasn't gonna try and screw them over. I promise.
Well, of course not. Of course not. And you could even name them if you want, and give them their little moment of fame, right? Before
yes. Well, one is named Maëlle Dassonville, and she lives in Colorado. Hi, Maëlle. And the other is Michelle O.
Very nice. And I hope you all get really famous and really well known and really rich. That would make me happy.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be
I'm not
awesome.
I didn't spend 14 years on this to get rich. I just really love it. Love my books. But it would be nice.
Hey,
I'm not going to say
nobody
no.
spends 14 years on anything to get rich. However, we don't mind if that
I'm not going to say no if people want to give me money.
But in the meantime, during this 14 years, you made a coloring book. When did you do that?
Oh, actually, the coloring book we made in 10 days. Well, because I was doing the Nerdist contest on Inkshares. So Inkshares is a crowd-funded publishing site. You post your book as a project, and it's like Kickstarter, but only for books. You can solicit readers to pre-order your book, and if you reach your goal, then they'll publish your book.
Inkshares is INKSHARES.com.
Yes, Inkshares. Yes, thank you. And they were running a contest, a 6-week contest with Nerdist.com, which is a sort of pop culture geeky website, conglomerate. And they were starting a publishing imprint. And so whoever got the most pre-orders, actually the most unique readers, not pre-orders, over 6 weeks will get published regardless of whether they met their goal or not. So I was trying to win this contest. I did not win the contest, but I was trying to win the contest. And as part of that, I got together a group of authors at Inkshares, and people contributed what they could. I'm an artist, and so I did 4 of the illustrations. Another artist and author who had a book on the site, Melissa Berg, her book is Prophecy of the Stars. She also did 4 illustrations, and then other people who could or wanted to did a crossword puzzle, a word search, a couple mazes, a search and find, and we decided to put this together as a promotional thing to cross-promote our books to each other's readers and followers.
Brilliant.
So yeah, so initially we just gave it to our readers as an incentive to pre-order, and then we realized the people with fewer readers wouldn't benefit as much because if we with more readers gave it to our readers, then they wouldn't want to get it again. They already have it. So we just gave it to everybody as a promotional thing. And we put it together in 10 days so that it could be out promoting our books before the end of the contest. And I'm very proud of it.
That's very cool. And so these other writers all have their own projects on Inkshares too?
Yes. They were all science fiction and fantasy books.
Very cool. And so how many of your collaborators have reached their goals and are getting published?
One won the contest.
Cool.
Yes. Well, he was in the top 5. Rick Hines with The Seventh Age. Yes. Seventh Age, it's called Dawn, I think. Seventh Age, Dawn. And another just met his goal a few days ago. Jameson Stone met his goal. His book is Rune of the Apprentice. And I'm trying to think. I don't think anybody else has met their goal yet.
Now, I had somebody else on my show who recently met his goal, Brian Guthrie.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He met his goal, I think, about a month ago.
He won the Nerdist.
Oh, he won. That's very cool. So he's getting a publishing contract, and he's really happy about that.
Yes, congratulations to him.
Yeah.
And to everybody else who won.
Shout out to Brian Guthrie, and his series is called Rise.
I pre-ordered his book because of your interview with him.
Did you? Well, now I feel very happy for him then. Say it again?
It was a valuable exchange to watch.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I think a lot of what happens with writers and people that are in these different contests is we don't get to talk about it very much. We're just doing this thing online, and we're writing tweets or Facebook promotions or Google Plus, or we're on Instagram or Pinterest or wherever it is we think we're going to find people to help us, but we don't get to talk about it very much. And I think it's really cool that you all have found each other and you're collaborating and supporting each other. And I didn't know about all this, obviously, until I started talking to Brian. And now I've had you, and I'm going to have Paul Inman, and I had J.F. Dubois on last week, and all of you are a part of Inkshare, so that's pretty cool.
We found you.
You all found me. I know. It's like I'm the new go-to person for getting on your video hat and getting onto YouTube and everything with this. So it's awesome. But you already had your video on. Oh, yes. Your hat was on, and I got to watch your video. And tell us how you decided to be all these different characters and talk to yourself in this video, because I just loved it. I thought it was really funny, but I know it wasn't all supposed to be funny, but I enjoyed it is what I mean.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I worked really hard on it. What I did to start off with was watch all of the crowd-funded promotional videos I could. I was initially going to do a Kickstarter. That was the plan the whole time. So that's why the video was done at the beginning of the Inkshares contest, because I was going to start a Kickstarter project soon. So we'd already filmed it, and it was partway edited when this contest came up. So I watched a bunch of promotional videos, and I saw what I liked and what I didn't like, and where I saw what I thought were maybe problems, and what people did that was successful. And then I just let my brain churn. My brain is always going, it never stops. And it's easier for me to play 5 different characters than it is to wrangle friends all together and give them lines of dialogue and hope that they can deliver. So I just did it all myself.
Now you got all these different hairstyles. Where'd you get all the extra hair?
Well, the hair was there. I chopped it off.
Oh, I see. Because now it looks like you look now, and then I thought, oh, where did you put the rest of your hair? Oh, I see. So you cut it since then. All right.
Yeah, no, I just did a bunch of different hairstyles. I had the undercut then too, but it was really long, and so I had to try really hard to do the Rachel, because I hope people got that, specifically trying to look as much as I could like Rachel from Blade Runner. And lit from the side, like that first, like the first scene where you meet Rachel. And then I had my cup of coffee, and I don't know if anybody noticed it or not, but there's a digital effect in there where smoke is coming out of the coffee cup, just like coming out of this. It's awesome. Okay. It's subtle. It's mostly for me because I'm such a nerd. But she has a cigarette, and there's smoke coming out of it in this first scene where she's lit from the side, and there's a smoke. And so there's smoke, steam coming out of my coffee. And it's okay if nobody got it. I got it.
Well, I really didn't get all the references, but I have to tell you a little small story.
Yes.
The woman who was in the Terminator, Linda Hamilton, is a personal friend of my longtime best friend.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he's been to her house, and they know each other and this whole thing. Because she's about my age and my friend's age. And so there's a whole group of people who kind of knew each other growing up together. And her really good friend is friends with my good friend. So that's how he met her. And they were in a play together that I helped direct. And so there was this whole thing that Linda was maybe going to come to his play, and at the last minute she couldn't. But it was really kind of interesting that you put her picture up there. I was like, oh, there's Linda. And then obviously I'm a big fan of Sigourney Weaver, although I was not a big fan of the Alien movies. I did watch the first one, but they were just too scary and gory for me. I'm really weak stomach. But she was awesome as Ripley. She was awesome. And I also really liked her.
You should watch the second one. You just gotta close your. You should watch the second one, Aliens. because aliens are they're, well, no, not completely different, but one is a horror movie and one is an action adventure movie.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe sometime. I'll take it seriously. I will think about it, but to tell you the truth, I don't like lots of fighting.
That's okay.
I don't like lots of gore. I'm really not into lots of CGI. I mean, I am a sci-fi fan that's really weird.
Not a lot of CGI. Those movies are they're really hands-on. You should, so good. Aliens is one of the best movies. It's in my top 10. It's in my top 10 favorite movies.
All right. I will take
but I understand not liking gore. I don't like reading gore either. I don't read horror.
Yeah, but you wrote your opening scene in your play. I mean, your book is going to give me nightmares. I only read the first few paragraphs, and I'm like, oh my God. It's like my worst nightmare is being buried alive. And you have this woman who's like totally frozen in this thing, and she can't get out, and she can't breathe. I'm like, I didn't want to read it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that.
And you got her out. You got her out fast. So then
Okay, see, I wrote that. Here's the backstory. I wrote that scene 3 weeks after the birth of my first child. And if you look at it as, it's basically a birth scene. Yeah. It's a birth scene. She's struggling to get out.
From the point of view of the baby, though, not from the point of view of the birthing mom. Right.
I still think it's kind of horrifying. Like
it is. It is.
But we do it, and
yeah, we all do it. Well, I just read. Do you know who Sherry Tepper is?
No, I don't know.
Sheri Tepper. Okay, put that down. Write it down. As an author, you have to read. Okay. She is an icon. She's like Ursula K. Le Guin icon.
Okay.
She's in her 80s. She's a feminist science fiction, speculative fiction writer who has written the most interesting, iconic books that almost nobody's read. But she's won a lot of awards. And the one that I just read that I had missed that came out in the year 2000 is called The Fresco. And it is so funny. And one of the things that's funny, I'll just tell you because it's not a big giveaway, is that she posits that there are these aliens that are kind of like wasps, and they are invited to Earth by these other group of aliens that are kind of monitoring Earth and trying to help us. And they figure out that the best way to get all these politicians who are pro-life to acknowledge how they're not really pro-life at all and they're really just anti-women is to get these wasp aliens to rape them, impregnate them, force them to carry the baby to term because they're pro-life and they can't kill this, right? It's a creature. And then force them to go through the thing that has to eat its way out of them. Well, don't worry. It only takes 12 to 14 hours, and it only hurts a lot for that time, and then it's over, and you don't usually die from it. You should be okay. I mean, everything they were saying is exactly like labor, pregnancy, and delivery for human females. And it was just so interesting. And the whole concept of making these men own up to their misogyny by having to carry a pregnancy and recognize all the different issues. Well, of course, most of them don't learn anything. But readers do. And that was really the point. Right?
That sounds, see, you want to talk about horrifying? That sounds horrifying. It sounds like a little bit like, isn't there a scene like that in The Fly? The Jeff Goldblum one?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of creatures. That's what they do. Wasps really do that. They lay their eggs.
That sounds horrible. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they lay their eggs in other beings like tarantulas or caterpillars. And then when the babies are ready, they eat their way out. It's disgusting. I know.
Yeah, that's super gross.
Circle of life. I mean, what are you going to do, right?
Yeah, that's horrifying. I mean, I'm not trying to horrify anybody with my book.
Really? You're not?
No. I mean, I do want it to be scary, but not in a way that you can't. I guess it's different for every reader. You know, if it's not for you.
Let's talk about kidnapping.
Kidnapping?
Yeah. How is that not horrifying?
No, the events are horrifying, but I want the reader to be able to get through it because life is horrifying.
You're right.
And I think part of the service that stories can do for us is to show us a way that people get through horrifying things.
Yes, I agree. And I don't want people to think they shouldn't write about these things. But I guess I'm just agreeing with you that it is horrifying.
It is horrifying.
Hard to read or hard to get through. But then when your characters do make it through, it's inspiring. Yeah. It's illuminating. It's educational even sometimes, right? How they get their way through something.
Yeah, I really want people to be able to get through it. I mean, and there are some people, there's all types of writing. So I just need to find the readers that are the ones that, you know, will connect with what I'm writing.
Well, I've heard from people. Yeah,
good.
once you get through it, it's worth it. I've heard from people who teach domestic violence protection classes and martial arts for women and stuff like that, that some of them have heard stories from their, I guess you would call them clients or participants, I don't know, from the women who take the classes, students, that they learn some valuable things from fiction books, movies, and television shows that show women in really bad situations and how they get themselves out of it. Like what tools they use, what moves they make, what they think about. Like that whole thing of kicking the taillight out when you're trapped in the trunk of a car, that has saved people's lives.
Yeah.
From having learned that and watched that. And it's really kind of interesting. I don't know if you could do that in the newer cars, but in the older cars, that was something that people could do. And they were able to not be killed, not be transported too far. So I think writers do everybody a favor when they're more specific and they really tell people how their characters manage what they manage. And that it is realistic to the point where, unless you're incorporating magic, that somebody could really do it.
Yeah, I'm really sensitive to the portrayals of these hard situations because I think it's apparent if somebody's writing hard things from a perspective that's not realistic or empowering, but more exploitative. I think that becomes apparent. And sometimes I'm watching or reading things and I just end up thinking, you know, this is like, you're not writing this woman tied up and vulnerable because you want to show a way for her to get out. You're enjoying it.
Oh,
and it makes you feel uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah. People who write about serial killers because they secretly want to be serial killers. I don't like those books.
I don't know. I don't read serial killer books. Oh my goodness.
No. And I also think that there are people who write fight scenes who don't know the first thing about fighting. And they haven't choreographed it and they haven't set it up where people could show them if those moves are even possible with human bodies. And then you're reading it and you're going, wait a minute, that person was just standing there. How did they use their right leg to do that? That doesn't even make sense, right?
Yeah, I've actually started watching Ultimate Fighting Championship matches, UFC championship matches, because in the second book, so the first book's all on Earth, the second book is set on a space station, and one of the plot points is that one of the characters is forced to fight in a fighting ring. So I've been watching these fights to try and figure out how people do that and make it realistic.
Wow. And then is it on regular gravity or do they have lower gravity?
It's a good question. I've been imagining it with regular gravity. But I guess you could do an Ender's Game style, like,
I found that so confusing. I never understood what he was writing about. And even when I saw the movie depiction of it, I still didn't get it. This whole thing about, you know, the enemy's gate is always down or whatever. What are they talking about? I just never figured it out. I guess I'm just not really that good at that stuff, but they all figured it out. So
that's okay. I've got that spatial intelligence thing going on, so I connected with that really easily. But you know, to each their own, right?
Well, and it's really important because when people do make those connections with their readers, they really hook them. And they really make it so you can feel like you're inside that character's experience. And that's important.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm reading Ender's Game and I'm staying outside of it because I don't understand. I can't feel it. I'm not Ender. I'm not Bean. I'm not that girl. I can't remember her name. Because I don't understand what they're doing with their bodies. And so I can't feel it. But Valentine, you probably could. Petra, thank you. Yeah, so you probably could.
Yeah, I really, really connected with Ender's Game when I was a teenager. It was a big book for me.
I read all of them. I mean, I enjoyed them and really found them.
Did you read all the main books?
I did, and I read all of the new ones too, the prequels. Although the prequels were too much fighting, and I ended up skimming through a lot of it because I'm not really interested in the fighting. I really liked more the internal lives of the characters, including the aliens, much more than I like battle scenes. I'm not into that no matter where it's depicted, movies, films, TV, books. I don't want to see it.
I hear you. Yeah, I don't go for that kind of stuff either. I like everything to be character driven. So
me too.
If there's a fight happening,
I want a story.
If there's a fight happening, I want it to progress and end in a way that's meaningful for each person participating in the fighting.
And advance the story to the point where you really feel like it was time well spent, especially if it's in a film when you have such limited time.
Yeah. Oh
I don't want to spend 15 minutes in a car chase or a big CGI fight scene. Like, that's my biggest complaint about all the new Star Wars movies. All three of them were just endless chase scenes and racing and fighting. And if you really added up the plot moments, they were very, very few.
It was very slim, yeah.
And they didn't. I mean, they had this great opportunity to give the backstory for how did Darth Vader become Darth Vader, and I thought they failed miserably.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the prequels either. There were a few moments where they gripped me, they got me, a few moments, but they were very few.
Yeah, it was disappointing all around.
It was.
And I'm a big Star Trek fan too, and so I'm a little bit leery of this new Star Trek movie that's coming out. Oh, yeah? Because I've heard that it has a lot of fighting again. And the last one did too, and I didn't like that. Like, I know people love that stuff. Some people really love it. But,
well, you know, the first reboot, Star Trek fan, reimagining, different timeline. It's a different timeline. Because, you know, they changed the timeline. The 2009 one, I really, really enjoyed because it's a story of a team coming together. And they start out fighting, and then you see how they become friends and figure each other out and click and work together. And I love that kind of stuff. That's pretty much the kind of story that I'm writing. It's a team coming together. Nice. So I love that. And then the second one, Star Trek Into Darkness, that's just so disappointed.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. But we don't have to talk about that. I'm with you on the whole endless battle scene thing. At the end of Avatar, I just got up and I went and walked around the movie theater for a little while.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, what's going to happen? They're going to fight, like, secondary protagonist is going to fight secondary bad guy. Primary protagonist is going to fight primary bad guy. We know who's going to win. Like, the movie might as well be over.
Yeah, I agree. It's really disappointing. And I think it's really lazy on the part of the writers and the producers and the directors. I think it's really just pandering in the worst kind of way, you know, to the adolescent boys who are watching.
Yeah, I'm not
really like that, you know.
I understand that it made $1 billion, so they have their viewers.
Yeah, I know, because they all drag their friends to it. But, you know, there you go. All right, so now let's talk about something that I have really spent a lot of time thinking about in my books, which I think you have too, which is how traditionally to present them. And if the stories are somewhat traditional, or the plots or the inside of the story character-wise is a lot of familiarity, what do we do with them to make them unique? To make them creative and interesting. And you and I talked before we started about how I decided to present the concept of all time being simultaneous in my Spanish series by writing from Claire's point of view, and then all the other characters learning how to speak and write from the point of view of everything in the present tense.
Right.
To emphasize that it's all happening now. Even though it's awkward and grammatically incorrect and all that, I decided to go with that for all the books. And the funniest thing about that is that now I find myself talking that way because I'm in the middle of writing the 4th book and I just finished the 3rd book. So my brain is just always going that way. And then so I'm in a conversation with someone and I realize, oh, no, I have to use the past tense here.
That's hilarious. That's awesome. Yeah, and it's really interesting. I love seeing stuff like that. I love it when authors try and do things in new ways. Like, I think Anne Leckie, with her ancillary
with gender.
She I think she was. I haven't read those books, but I think one of the main characters doesn't see gender the way that everybody else sees gender, so they refer to everyone as female. I think, regardless of whether they're personally consider themselves male or female. So I'm really interested in stuff like that. I guess from a storytelling point of view, one thing that I mentioned it a little bit in my video, the idea that I'm doing this is my cover of the hero's journey. So we all know the hero with 1,000 faces, Joseph Campbell, modern, the myth, here, the mythic hero's journey. And so I'm doing my version of that, which is not just a challenge and a negation of everything that goes on there, but I am trying to do more of a feminist, a female perspective on the whole journey that a hero or a group of heroes can take, because it's really not about a single. I didn't just take the hero with 1,000 faces, same exact journey cycle, and just make the protagonist female. It's a story of fragmented, disparate people who, by the end, come together, and also a few things like I've noticed that often each protagonist and side characters are paired with their equivalent bad guy that they have to fight by the end. Like I said with Avatar, the secondary protagonists fight the secondary bad guys, primary protagonists fight the primary bad guys. And so in my book, none of each of the characters is capable of defeating their foe. They each fail to defeat their foe. They can't do it. They need the other characters to do it.
So we're talking about interdependence, collaboration, cooperation, yes. And that's your perspective on how it's different from the individual hero's unique journey of he has to do it all himself.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Or he might get help along the way, but he ultimately has to go alone into the cave or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know, the other thing I really appreciate about that is, you know, you get to these places in most books, stories, TV, movies, whatever, and somebody says, I have no choice. And I always just want to slap them and say, yeah, you do. You got lots of choices. Let's talk about your choices. It's almost always a guy who says that. I mean, women can say it, obviously, but it does seem to be this machismo coming out, like, I have no choice. I've got to do this next thing that is really risky and stupid and dangerous, but I have to do it. And ultimately, they go do it, but they didn't have to. Right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're bringing up so many different issues we could talk about. Oh my goodness.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I guess with the whole, we could talk about gender. Do you want to talk about gender?
Let's talk about gender. One of my favorite topics.
Yay, yay. Well, I, of course, am interested in gender presentation, you know, how it affects people's lives. And, I really like Shakespeare. And so growing up, my favorite Shakespeare play as a teenager was As You Like It.
And one of those where the boy and the girl switch places. He's got a lot of those.
Oh my gosh, yes, it's so good. It's so funny because there's the girl and her name's Rosalind. That's where we got the name Rosalind. My second daughter's named Rosalind. So Rosalind, she goes into the forest. And, you know, she's running from being, I forget, executed or exiled or something. And so she dresses up as a boy, and then she meets the man she's in love with, who is forlorn. And so she, as a boy, tells him that she will dress up like a girl, and he can practice wooing her. And so, and they only allowed male actors when these plays were presented in Shakespeare's time. So it was a boy, a man, acting as a woman, acting as a man, acting as a woman, which I just find hilarious, and I love it. And there are so many layers there, ways that you can comment on gender. But at the end of my first book, Rely, spoiler, a little bit spoiler.
Well, Rely is spelled R-E-L-A-I, and it's the name of your main character.
Main character,
for everybody to know.
Yes, she is on the run and attempting to get back home to her home planet to take back her crown from mysterious bad people who have taken over in her name and done all sorts of bad things. And so at the end of the first book, she shaves her head, and she goes in disguise as a boy. And so the whole second book, she's presenting herself as a boy in all these different situations, a teenage boy, because...
Now, okay, here's my big question.
Yes.
What do they do when they have their periods during this I'm a boy thing? And what do they do when they have to pee? I mean, I'm really serious about this because I never buy it. That's
a great question.
I mean, I can understand a flat-chested woman or somebody who wears really loose tops could hide their breasts as long as nobody hugs them. As soon as you hug someone, you know they have breasts, all right? But if they're not hugged, you can get away with it. But what do you do about menstruating, and what do you do about peeing? All the men get together in the forest, whip it out, and pee. You don't got nothing to whip out, girl. So what are you going to do?
That's a great question. Yes, that's a great question. Well, if you're in pitch black, you get chased by aliens. That's what happens when you menstruate and you're pretending to be a boy. Pitch Black is a great movie.
Because you're smelling like blood and they want your blood?
Exactly, yes. It's a plot point. You should watch Pitch Black. Just close your eyes at the scary parts. Okay. It's a really good movie. But that's a great question. And you will have to read my second book to figure out how I do it.
But do you actually address it as my question? You do. Good, because almost nobody does. Shakespeare certainly never did. And lots of other people don't address it at all. They just skim over it. Just like nobody ever uses the bathroom in most of these books or on TV or in the movies.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm cognizant and aware of that. At one point, okay, so Goran, have you read much of my book?
No, I just read the first part and it just sort of freaked me out, and I was like, okay, I can't keep reading this.
I hope you can find it within yourself to keep reading. But my teenage boy character Goran, at one point he goes, "Am I the only one who needs to pee?"
Oh, good.
I just love adding in stuff like that because they have to eat. They have to go to the bathroom. You know, these are real human beings, right?
Well, my other objection is all these people in all these movies, their cell phones never run out of battery. Unless it's a plot point, right? Unless they want to have a crisis. Otherwise, they go for days, never having to recharge their phones. I'm like, my phone doesn't even go 24 hours. Where do these people get their phones? I don't understand. I want those phones, right? And I know things can be unrealistic in fiction and they have to make a point, especially in a short drama like on TV, but I still want them to have realistic moments. And I love that your character is like, I have to pee. I think that's great.
Yeah, I work really hard to have stuff like that.
In my books, people brush their teeth, or they use a bathroom, or they take a shower, or they're cooking, or they're getting dressed, they're doing, regular stuff. They're not always having sex. They're not always talking about sex, which is what a lot of people are doing in their books that passes for real life. I have to say, if all the people who spend all the time thinking about having and experiencing sex were actually doing that, they would have no time to work. They would have no time to do anything else.
Yeah, my first book takes place over the course of, I think it's 4 days. 4 days. And there's no time for sex. Nobody has any time to have any sex. They don't have time. There's a really intense hand-holding scene.
Oh, yay!
Two characters hold hands. Which, if the reason why the Twilight books were so successful is because of writing the line of sexual tension and not actually just showing a lot of sex scenes, then I think that shows right there that what people like is tension, not necessarily just the release of tension over and over again.
Right, well, that's how the expression jump the shark came to be. You know that expression, jump the shark, that came out of the Happy Days movies when Fonzie actually rode some kind of a, I don't know what it was, a water sport thing and actually jumped over a shark. But they talk about that when they have that sexual tension between the main characters on a TV show or in a movie or a book. And instead of leaving it at the tension phase, they allow them to have a moment, or even more than a moment, have a relationship. And very often after that, readership or viewership fizzles, or the plot just fizzles, or there's nowhere for it to go. Then there's nothing interesting or tense about it anymore.
Yes.
And that doesn't work.
I think on part of the reason for that is because of the lack of creativity. And on the part of the writers, because there are ways to continue tension without it being a will they or won't they get together tension. But as far as my books go, since these people have only known each other for 4 days, you know, relationship tension, sexual tension, but all sorts of other tension is very important, and it's all character driven. So
and it can't get resolved in 4 days. Of course,
yeah, it can't all be resolved in 4 days.
Well, I have the opposite or a sideways problem in my books, which is that because there are multiple timelines and multiple versions of the same relationship between Clara, my main character, and Epifanio, or Clara and this other man, Steve, or Clara and possibly a woman, or Clara and possibly an alien, or Clara being single, all of these are happening, and I write scenes in which each of them is happening in a variety of ways, and there is tension, and then there is not tension. There is really happy, and there is not happy. There is all different kinds of in the moment experience going on, and then you read another chapter and it's a different experience, or it's a little bit different. And so I think for readers, it's an interesting opportunity to explore the possibilities without having to resolve anything, or resolving all of it any way you want.
Yeah. See, that's interesting and creative. I love seeing stuff like that. Instead of just reading the same old story over again. So I hope people check out your book.
Same old story.
Yeah. And I hope people check out my book too, because
I think your second book sounds like it really takes things in a very different direction, and I like that.
Well, I'm trying to ease people into the science fiction aspect of it, because we start out really just getting to know the characters, and then a lot more crazy stuff starts happening, and it goes more and more out there. We start on Earth, very grounded, and then at the end of the first book, they go into space. So the whole second book is set on a space station. And then the third book is set on their home planet. So it's a journey.
Interesting. Okay, so it has that arc of actual travel.
Yes.
And then you have your character arcs, your plot arcs, and your tension, conflict arcs. But then here's my question. What are the relative ages of your main characters?
It's a great question. Rely is 22. Milo is 24. Goran is 17. Tanner is 28. Kai is slightly indeterminate age because he a little bit lost track due to relativity. But he's around 38, maybe 36, maybe 40. It's not sure. So those are my 5 main characters. And then I have 2 other characters that...
Is Kai considered of a different generation than Goran? I mean, do they really see themselves as very different because of their ages?
That's a really good question. They're from different planets, and due to his a lot of time in space, Kai was actually born close to 100 years before Goran.
Oh,
so they're very different generations,
and not just because of age; they're just different.
Yes, different culture, different life experiences, different amount of time spent in space.
Well, I'm curious because in my books, I have the age range of characters from about 6 or 7 to into their late 60s, early 70s over the course of the books, who actually all participate in a variety of ways and have scenes and interactions and main moments with each other and with other characters, and writing from their points of view. Sometimes I have multiple narrators and multiple points of view from people who are narrating what they're seeing, what they're experiencing. And part of what I'm trying to convey and what I think is interesting is that even when you're old, I put that in quotes, like in your 50s, 60s, 70s, you retain this sense of yourself of all your ages. And so I think when we're younger, we have this concept that older people are different, that they think differently, they feel differently, they've either got it all together or they're just past this or that. But in my books, I really show that no, that isn't the case at all. That older people are still struggling and still wondering and still get jealous or sad or angry or hurt or
don't have it all together,
or surprised, or they might have a lot of things together, but they still get very emotional about certain things, and they're not always calm or smart or anything. And that younger people can be quite competent and quite stable and quite ready to do things that with a lot less thought put into it, maybe because they don't have the experience to realize what the risks are, they'll just go for it and they'll just do it, you know. And the older people stand around dithering and wondering and, you know, don't quite make the action happen. And then the younger person comes and goes, oh, I'm just going to do this. And they just do it, right? So do you see any of that playing out with the various ages you described?
Yeah, those are really good, you know, really good ideas to touch on. I really intentionally made a lot of my characters a very broad range of ages because I wanted them to have very different experiences and bring different perspectives to the table. And so yes, my book is really all about people with disparate ideas and perspectives learning how to work together and come together, and you know, find ways of valuing each other when initially they don't, and find ways of seeing worth when initially they didn't.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to 1/4 of the hour, believe it or not. It feels like we've only been on 5 minutes, right? But it is actually 1/4 of the hour. And so I get to ask you my traditional big question that I ask every guest on Changes, which is, given all of the local, personal, regional, statewide, provincial, national, global, political, spiritual, religious, economic, technological, scientific, ecological, climatic, and artistic, and any other kinds of changes you're aware of, which ones arouse in you hope? Which ones might evoke fear? What would you like to say about changes? Take it away, Cara, Weston.
This is a very big question. It's a lot to answer. Impossible to answer in 10 minutes. We all know that.
Just pick your favorite part.
Well, I guess I'm married to a historian. And so we often together reflect on the historical context of whatever is happening in the present day. And there's always important historical context to consider when you watch events that are happening, because it's really easy over the course of any individual's life to say, oh, things were so much better back when X, or why can't we go back to this golden time, or kids today seem so much worse than my generation was. You know, it's easy to say stuff like that, but then if you look at the cycles each generation goes through, you see the same things being said over and over again. You know, each generation thinks the next generation is the laziest generation, or the worst generation, or the most disconnected, things like that. And so I think it helps me a lot when I get discouraged or worried about the challenges that we're facing, to remember that things go in cycles. It seems cycles with tension and release, with inequality and equality, with people crying out for change, and those cries being answered. So I find comfort in that. I guess in just knowing that there are cycles that the world goes through, it seems, and so that, because it can be discouraging to think we're living in the worst time that's ever existed, and I don't think we're living in. I actually don't know. I don't know if I can make any broad, sweeping statements about the world that we're living in today. I am hopeful, but I'm also kind of maybe a skeptical person by nature. So I do my best to keep hope within me, to keep things in perspective, so that I don't just, because it's really easy. There are a lot of really horrible things in this world. It's really easy to lose hope. But I try to, I'm encouraged by changes in technology. Oh no, you've disappeared.
I want to show people your website while you're talking,
okay,
so
sure.
see your book and enjoy it and think about it, and that you have this video and you're talking about being hopeful. And I thought your book sounds very hopeful, so I wanted them to see the cover.
It is hopeful. I am trying. I mean, like in contrast, my husband loves stories where Coen Brothers style, everything goes horribly wrong. The end. And I'm aiming to tell a hopeful story. That's what I want to put out into the world. Not pretending that horrifying things don't happen, but I want to show characters figuring out ways to reconcile their differences and come to love and respect one another and work together. That's what I'm trying to do. And
you have this cover where the person is upside down. Relay is upside down. Is that because she's in space?
Well, she's in space, yes, but it's supposed to be. It's supposed to show her inner tension, and that, like, all the hands grabbing her are supposed to be these different forces with different expectations, and yeah, that's my website. Those are my characters.
Well, and you were talking about your characters in their different ages, and they're all here, and somebody drew them. Did you draw them?
Yep, that's all me.
This is so cool. So you have Rely over here on the left, and then Milo or Milo?
Milo.
And then how do you say this next man's name? Bevan?
Yeah, Bevan. But his name's Kai. We call him.
Oh,
he
Kai.
Goes by,
okay, that's
he goes by Kai.
Okay. And then you have Tanner, who's a female-looking person.
Yes.
And then you have Goran.
Goran, right.
Cool. So these are the ones you just mentioned, and you were saying that, you know, you want them to have some hope, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, those are my 5 main characters. They're actually, in the second book, we introduced the next 2 that round out the full 7. It's because there's a prophecy that talks about 7 people coming together. And so in the next book, we meet the other 2, and there's 7 of them.
Cool.
7 is a nice, meaningful, round number.
Yeah, and it has a lot of symbolism in many cultures. And then you talked about the feminism of the journey being that they're coming together because of the collaboration that's needed for them to complete their mission or their journeys individually. Now, is Relay the one who's, Rely, is she the one who's guiding all this? Do they come together to help her, or are they all there for different reasons?
Oh, that's a good question. She is the she's the main character protagonist. She's central to the story, but it's not necessarily always because she wants to be. That's part of the hero's journey thing too, is that she doesn't want to be the center of the story. And by the end of it, the prophecy says, the book title, She is the End, comes from the prophecy, which says that she'll be the end of her monarchy, her ruling line. And that is true. I'm not gonna figure out a way to weasel out of that. She is the end. She's the end. So part of it is figuring out a way to resolve the story in a satisfying way that allows her to essentially fail at what other characters or other stories might consider to be a successful hero's journey. So she is central to the story in that way.
Interesting. Well, so basically what you do is you change the criteria for what success is.
Exactly. Yes. Yes, exactly.
I like that, because a lot of times we have assumptions on what we think will make us happy. I was just thinking about this morning, actually, that I was looking back on a relationship from 40 years ago for me when I was in my 20s, late teens and early 20s, with a man that I should not have had a relationship with for a variety of reasons, but whom I was so attached to and so enamored of and desperately wanted to be with him. But we did not stay together because I got a job out of state and had to move to go take the job. And I spent more than a year being mad and hurt and sad that he didn't try to keep me there. He didn't try to help me be there with him. He didn't love me enough, whatever I made up. But I look back now and I see the kind of life he's led since then, because we've stayed in touch a little bit. And I realized I would have been miserable if I had stayed with him. I didn't want that life.
Yep.
I didn't even like him that much. He was a drinker. He was into all kinds of things I wasn't interested in, but somehow I thought he was what I wanted.
Yeah.
Well, if my prayers had been answered at that point, I would have ended up with a very different life and not a better one.
Yeah.
So I think you are making a good point in your books, which is sometimes what you think you want, what you really desperately believe is the right thing, isn't going to make you happy.
Yes, I have several guys like that too in my life. Yeah. I'm hoping, because the story seems to be the same over and over again, and it's so often a white male coming into another culture, saving the day.
Oh yeah,
for them.
Snooze
so
fest.
So often, and so I'm trying to, I would like to challenge that, and the idea that maybe the formation of close relationships, maybe just the slow, hard work of trying to negotiate your way through, clashing cultures where people really have different values and different goals. Because like Milo, my second protagonist, he comes from a region on their home planet of Arden that wants to be free. They would like to be out from under the monarchy. They want their freedom. They want to be released. They can rule themselves. So the idea that figuring out how two very different cultures can work together, just that journey, even if you never reach a resolution that might feel satisfying based on previous stories that you've read, just that effort put in and trying, that living out of relationships can be a valuable end in and of itself.
Interesting. Well, I am so sorry to say this, but it is 5 minutes before the hour. And so we are going to have to say our shout outs and thank yous and goodbyes. And I want to let everybody know that Changes, Conversations Between Authors, happens almost every Wednesday at 10 o'clock Eastern Time USA. But next Wednesday, October 21st, it is not happening. I always take at least one Wednesday off per month. And the following Wednesday, we're going to have another one of your InkShares collaborators or friends, Paul Inman, I-N-M-A-N, will be on October 28th. And after that, I have a lot of openings. So either my life is changing in a way I haven't predicted and I won't be doing the show, or there are a lot of authors who just haven't piled in yet who would like to be on the show and should get in touch with me. Sally Ember at yahoo.com, SALLYEMBER at yahoo.com is how to reach me. But first, you have to go to my website, sallyember.com, and look at the changes page and follow the directions. It tells you what you have to do to get on the show, and I'm serious. Don't write me and say, oh, I'd like to be on your show. I'm just going to send you back to my website, so save us both time. Go read what you have to do. Go do it, and then you'll write me, and you'll have the right kind of email with the information I need to put you on the show, which would be delightful. I also want to remind people that I am an author myself, and my Spanish series is about to release book 3. Volume 3 is This Is / Is Not the Way I Want Things to Change, and it is going to have a cover reveal on October 26th by Alicia Escobar, ALESHAESCOBAR.com. And please go visit her site and compliment my artist, Idina Willow Raven, on a beautiful cover. And then it will be in pre-order starting November 1st, half price through December 7th, and go in full release December 8th. And I hope to get my print books into circulation, but I still need to raise a few more dollars. Please go to Patreon, patreon.com/SallyEmber, and donate. If you donate $4, you get a free ebook. Donate more, you get some discounts on editing, proofreading, or writing tutoring. So those are all my shout outs and thank yous. And what would you like to say, Cara?
I would like to say thank you so much for having me here, Sally. It was really great, and I highly recommend it to other authors. I hope you get a whole bunch more. I would love for people to go check out my InkShares project page and hopefully pre-order my book. If you sign up for InkShares first by entering your email, when it prompts you to, they'll give you a $5 credit, so you can order it for $4.99. And they love participation from readers. So if you go around and make any recommendations of book projects or comment on anything or gain followers, they'll give you more credits. So you could potentially get a book or more than one book for free. So check out Inkshares. It's a great new way to get published. And I would love to talk with people about it if you're interested in finding out how to publish your own books too.
Great. So I want to remind everybody that your website for Inkshares and your regular website are both listed on the Google Plus page and on the YouTube page. SheIsTheEnd.com is your regular website, and you can get to everything from there. Or you can go to inkshares.com/projects/SheIsTheEnd, and She is the End is all hyphenated for that part.
Right.
And I also want to remind everybody that Cara is also an artist. You can go look at her art and discuss it with her and compliment, comment, or question her in great detail with great respect, and she would probably love that.
Yes, I would. I would love that.
Anything else you'd like to tell people or ask before we sign off, Cara?
Pre-order my book. And I'm on Twitter at AC Weston Writes, WRITES. So AC Weston Writes. And you can always say hi, tweet me, ask questions. That would be cool.
Nice. Very nice. And you can reach me on SallyEmber.com and find all my contact points there. And as I say at the end of every show, thank you to my guest, Cara, and go well with your changes.
Thank you so much.
Signing off.